to Hooked on Gingerbread. This is video number 4 of my 2022 Gingerbread series, A Friend's Apartment Building. Finally, tonight we are going to bake. Now with this project, I've chosen 2 gingerbread recipes. The recipe we're going to be using tonight is a construction grade gingerbread recipe. It's honey based and it is humidity resistant. I never want to call anything humidity proof because there isn't any, unless you want to use cement. Anywho, with that being said, what you're going to need is definitely, if you have a KitchenAid mixer, mine's ancient as all get out, but it still works. That's preferable. And you're going to need a paddle mixer. You're also going to need these ingredients: 5 eggs, 2 3/4 cup of sugar, 2/3 cup of honey, 2 teaspoons of ginger, and 7.5 cups of flour. Now tonight I may only use 6.5 to 7 cups of flour, depending on how it's going to go. So the first thing we're going to do is cream the eggs and sugar. And this recipe also can be found on my website, hookedongingerbread.com. I want to make sure that it's well incorporated, the sugar and the eggs. Okay, so next I'm putting in the honey. Now I microwave the honey, which is something new I'm doing tonight because I saw another recipe that microwaved the honey, and I'm hoping that will help my recipe. I microwave the honey for 25 seconds in the microwave. So we're adding the honey. And then we're going to mix that pretty well. Make sure it's well incorporated in it. I got some honey on the sides here. Okay, now we're going to add the ginger and make sure that's incorporated. Woo, that's strong. That's really strong. I got it my nose or something. Make sure you scrape down the sides pretty well too. Okay, now I'm going to gradually add the flour. So I pretty much add, I'm just going to do a cup at a time, well maybe 2 cups at a time. Make sure you keep track of your measurements. Now if my cups look like they're willy-nilly, it's because I have it all pre-measured. So you do need to have your cups, your flour, level. Okay, that was 2. I used to, before I got the KitchenAid, I used to go through a mixer every year for gingerbread season. And finally, I took the winnings of one of my contests and bought a KitchenAid because it's totally worth it. This KitchenAid is 20 years old. Okay, let's try this. Oops. Some out. But you definitely, if you're really serious about making gingerbread, you really do need a KitchenAid mixer or some heavy duty mixer because it's totally worth it. And it saves you a lot of heartache and a lot of mixers. Let's see how light this gingerbread is. It wouldn't be that light if I would have put the cloves and the cinnamon in it. Okay. Now I'm just feeling to make sure to see if it's what the consistency is. I cannot believe this, but I'm going to use 7 cups. That's odd. I never use 7 cups usually. And I'm wondering if it has something to do with the honey itself. You know, if it's if it's different types of honey that I've used. Now, so this is 7 cups. I'm kind of wondering, do I want to put another half in or not? I think I may. Okay, so I'm going to just gradually, I'm going to put in 1/4 of a cup at a time because I don't trust this. It's starting to get tough. Okay. The stickiness is starting to go away. And that's what I'm feeling for, is the stickiness. I think I'm going to use the whole 7.5 cups. I've never had to use this before, but I'm using a different type of honey too, a different brand, and that might make the difference. Well, no, that's not going to work. You know, when your KitchenAid mixer cries, you have to listen to it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put it on my countertop and finish kneading it. So I'm going to scrape the sides down. And pull it out. And start kneading it. Just a little crumbly there, and I usually get more crumble than that. So I'm going to knead it. I don't want to knead it too much because I'm scared that it's going to shrink on me. What it feels like is it's not sticky anymore. There's a little teensy weensy little stick, but I guess that's normal. Right. Right, so I've kneaded the dough. It feels really weird. If you guys ever used this kind of dough before, it just feels like it's penetrating your skin for some weird reason. Now I'm just going to put them in a flat, I don't know, was that it's not a disc, just flatten it. You see it's sticking already. I don't want to over flour this because I'm going to be using flour when I roll it out. So now I'm going to wrap it in plastic wrap. Very tightly. And let it sit there for a while. Some of the old-fashioned recipes that I've seen say make it sit there overnight, and I've set it overnight before, and it was too difficult to roll out. So I kind of let it sit for, I don't know, it used to be 3 hours, but we're going to try something different tonight and see how it goes. They say, some of the recipes say that when you wrap it, it helps everything kind of combine together. Like I said, I am not a chef or a baker or anything like that, so I can't say why we have to do this. Although I can say it's easier to roll out when you do. So, but if you leave it if you leave it for too long, it's not easy to roll. It's not easy to roll. So it's kind of you kind of have to play it by ear, and I'll let you know how long I keep these wrapped. So now I have my two lumps of gingerbread wrapped, and I'm going to let them sit and combine for, maybe 30 minutes. Sometimes I've had them sit for 3 hours before, but we're going to try 30 minutes and see how they do. Okay, so believe it or not, this has been sitting overnight, just like I said I had never done before. Well, I ran out of time last night, and I would either just start sleeping on you, or I could just try to work with the dough today. And you know what? This is all about experimentation too. So when I did this, I put the two wrapped pieces in a Ziploc bag as well. I just didn't leave it out like this overnight. You really want to keep it as airtight as possible. So let's just see how this turned out. Okay. Wow, my goodness. I really did a wrap job on this. All right. I don't want to open it all up. I only want to you want to make sure that the dough that you get out, the rest of the dough is covered up again and put back into the plastic Ziploc bag. You don't want your dough drying out at all. So let me guess. I try to get enough dough to cover let's try a little more. Ooh, this is sticky. This is stickier than what I remember. It wasn't this sticky last night, that's for sure. So I guess when everything melded together, it got sticky again. But that's okay. That's what flour's for. You definitely don't want to over flour this dough. You don't want to dry it out in any way, shape, or form. So I'm wrapping it back up, and I'm sticking it back in my plastic bag. All right, so this may be too much dough, but let's go for it. Now, what I use is a silicone baking mat. My goal is to cover the entire mat. So we're going to see about that. Let's see if I got too much or too little or what. Now, sorry, I'm getting all this excess off my fingers. I'm going to put a little bit of a flour on it because this is getting obnoxious. I do like it actually to stick to the mat because then it stays in place. Now, you can roll any way that you want to roll. I have arthritis and I am broken. So what I do is I knead it a little bit. I mean, I just push down and try to get it to where I want it to go at first because, like I said, and I don't think I'm really at the best angle ergonomically. I think I should be lower. I think my position I have here, I think my island's too high to do this. But I'm going to do it anyway because that's how I roll. I never follow the rules. Oh no, Susan will end up in a cast. Okay, so I've got it kind of where I want it. Now what I'm going to do, because I am so arthritic, is I'm going to use a heavier weighted rolling pin. Now I don't do this for the final roll. I only do this to flatten it out some more. I have a secondary rolling pin that has the spacers on them, so you can literally take it off, the spacers off, and exchange them for bigger spacers. But what we want is a 1/8 inch wall or piece of gingerbread. So that's what we're going to get to. But this one's harder for me to roll. So I'm rolling it with the heavy duty guy first, and then not too thin, because you don't want to make it too, you want to go underneath 1/8 of an inch, but just enough to help me out. Now you don't have to do this. If you are perfectly capable of rolling out your dough with your spacers and everything on, have at it. This is just me being, like I said, broken. I have too many years of, I don't know, high school shot put, and then the military, and I'm just broken. So, excuse me while I huff and puff. Okay, so, okay, this is a little thick here. So I just pound the hell out of it. With this recipe too, I rub it, and it seems really weird, but it makes the surface slick. It makes the surface smooth, and I don't know, it just makes me feel better. So I do. So maybe it's a nervous tick. Who knows? But giving some love, giving a back rub to my gingerbread. Okay, so it seems like it's getting down to where I need to use the other rolling pin. I'll do it this way. So here we go. This is going to give me my thickness. And it's going to take me forever. The reason why I don't use the rubber, there are those rubber things that you can put on your rolling pins. I seem to not use them very well. I seem to push so hard that it excuses the it makes it, I just can't get it right. I push so hard that it's not the right size when I'm done with it, the dough. So I figured with wood, I can't push that hard. I would start getting splinters and stuff like that. So that's what I'm doing. Now I only go one way, because if I go the other way, I'm going to knock out, I'm going to put some divots in my dough. So I'm not going to do that. But as I work, you can see that this side's already gone off the mat. So what I do is I take my pizza cutter and I just cut. Now, the directions on the silicone mat say, do not cut on the mats. Well, yeah. I do it very softly. I don't dig into it. And I only use this for gingerbread. I don't use it for cookies or anything else. So, I don't play by the rules, in other words. Now, once we have this rolled out, you don't ever want to take it off the mat. Let's just say you don't have a mat. You can use foil, you can use parchment paper, anything, that floats your boat. You would not want to put it on a cookie sheet without something on it, though. But once we have it on the mat and it's all nice and the right size we want it, thickness we want it, then we're going to cut right on the mat, or we're going to cut out our pieces right on the foil. Whatever you have, whatever you're going to use, because I used to use foil all the time. Don't get me wrong. I've only been using mats for like 2 years. So I just went through a lot of foil, that's all. So let's see here. Like I said, you do you. Believe me, I'm sure this looks funny to most people, but it helps the arthritis a lot. Now this looks too thin. You definitely want to get your walls even. You don't want one part of the wall being thicker than the other. Okay. Another reason why I forgot about this, because it's so natural to me, another reason why I got into rubbing my dough, at least this one, is because I can feel the bumps. I can feel, after 20 years of doing this, I can feel where something isn't right. It's weird but true. So like right here, it's a little off. I'm not sure what it is. I might just not use it. Now that we've got our gingerbread rolled out to 1/8 of an inch thickness, I'm going to show you how to cut out your walls. Before you start cutting, you're going to need to gather up a few things. A X-Acto blade or a sharp knife, an edible marker, food coloring marker for labeling, a pin cushion. You're going to need it because you don't want pins in your gingerbread. No siree. Now I'm going to be working on my smallest building first. When I do not completely disassemble the building all at once. I never do that. I want to keep track of what I have and what I don't have. I'm very systematic on how I cut things. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to work on the first floor. So I'm going to pull this apart and put the other piece aside. So now I've got just my 4 walls, a door, and my ceiling. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to take out the pins. That's why you need the pin cushion. I'm going to take out all my pins. I'm going to take out all the pins for the entire section, actually, because I can keep track of a section. The reason why I say don't do it all at once is because you're going to forget where you're at in your cutting, and you're going to forget. I have done some pieces where I have missed a piece because I've pulled everything off at once. I was in a big hurry. Okay, so I have all of my pieces from building the building have been disconnected. You can see that. All of them have been disconnected, and all the pins are out. My door is even disconnected, even though it's not that great of a door. It will be great. So everything looks good, and now we're ready to cut. So first we're going to organize where we want all of our pieces to go. Now they have to be label side down, because that's how we're going to cut them. Not that it matters at this point, but you really do want to check it. Now I could put some of these I've reused over and over, so you have to be really careful. I don't have any more little pieces. I can put the door there. And then what do I have left? I've got the back and the front left. Well, that's a bummer. What's the back and the front? That's not going to fit on this board. So I guess we're stuck with these. Now that we have everything marked that we want to cut, I'm just going to cut around them. Now with gingerbread, you just can't cut. You just can't whip it down. You have to cut. You have to cut in like a stitch-like manner. So you're making like little dots. You never want to pull the gingerbread because you're distorting it. So you really want to hold this down. Now if your recipe is sticky, you can put down a little flour. Because I rub my gingerbread like that, it's very slick. See, it doesn't stick at all. Another thing with this recipe does not expand because it has no leavening in it, so it will not. It doesn't matter how close I get my pieces. But see, I'm going up and down, making like little hash marks the first time I go around. Now you can get, and I do have, like a little itty bitty roller cutter. You can use those. It's no big deal. I have one for like ravioli and stuff. The reason why I'm not using it is because not everyone has one, number one. And two, I kind of go nuts with it. I, and I don't get as straight of a line as I do if I just cut like this. So I'm literally, like again, see, I'm just going up and down, up and down. I'm making little dashes. I am not pulling on the gingerbread at all. I want to reiterate that, and I probably have said this now 3 times. Don't pull on your gingerbread. Now, once you get it all the way, you get it all the way around, then you can go back around again and cut. Cut through. I'm cutting lightly because I have, well, you don't want to scratch your foil either. You don't want to cut your foil and get your foil stuck in your gingerbread either. So I would suggest you cut lightly no matter what kind of backing you have. But I'm cutting lightly because I do have the sill pads underneath there. Now once I have that done, ooh, I got some stickiness. If you do, first of all, if you're pressing too hard, it will stick. If you do come across that, just wiggle, 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 wiggle. And it'll come up, and hopefully you don't have any blemishes, and we don't. So before I remove this from my gingerbread, I want to write down what it is. So I take my edible marker, and it is, it's like edible ink marker. It's food coloring is what it is. Okay, I'm going to take my edible marker, and I'm going to write what it is in a weird place. Now, since this building is all brick, it really doesn't matter. But if you were to do a building that you really want to expose your gingerbread, you really want to make sure that you put it, you mark it in like little corners and stuff like that. Building. And even when I'm writing, I am not pulling on the gingerbread. I will write, I'll just do like little dots. I feather my writing, because even writing on it will stretch it. LT, that means left, first floor. So I cannot never write an O like this, because it will stretch it every time. I have to go like little parentheses. And there you go. So you have your first cut. Now, for the second cut, and you notice I didn't pull anything out. There's a reason for that. So I'm going to cut again. Again, making sure that I just do little dots, little dashes. I do not pull the gingerbread. Okay, I think I've said that 5 times now. No pulling of the gingerbread. Okay, now I'm going to go back over it again. This time I'm going through it smoothly. I tend to push down harder when I go over it the second time for some weird reason. And yeah, I did. See, it's kind of sticky. Again, I'm gonna mark this one. Now, there are some people that will bake this entire thing just like this and will not cut out their pieces. They cut out their pieces after it's baked with a scroll saw. I've done it once, and that was just like 1 or 2 walls. I've never done that. First of all, I'm not crazy great at scroll saw. I mean, this wouldn't be hard to do with a scroll saw. But when you talk about windows and things like that, that kind of bugs me a little bit. But if you got a recipe that you really, 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 really love, it's great, but it shrinks every time, you might consider, okay, why don't I just bake a big sheet and then cut them out with a scroll saw? You can do that. I don't. Well, I have in the past. It's really nice, but I don't trust it. So now what I'm doing is I'm going to connect these 2 cuts here. And I'm going to pull this up, and I'm thinking it's sticking a lot. So you want to make sure that your lines are cut well. Come on, you. And I may have to get a butter knife to pull this up. Okay, so I had to bring in the spatula, or the, what do you call this thing? It's it is it's on the tip of my tongue. But I had to bring in the spatula to pull up. Now you have to make sure that when you're pulling up, you're not pulling up on the gingerbread this could be your walls. You're only pulling on the gingerbread in between the two pieces. There you go. And then you want to clean this up. Now the honey-based recipe is the only one that I have found that does this. It just sticks and sticks and sticks. I don't think the corn syrup recipe sticks as much, but it can just clean it up as best you can. I will, when I get it out of the oven, I'll sand it down. I'll sand the sides down. So if I do have any weirdness, any stuff left on the sides that I don't like, then I'll take it off then. So I want to make sure that's good. There you go. But never pull hard. You just have to get underneath it and scrape it up. But the goal is, do not stretch out your gingerbread. That's the goal. So whatever helps you with that goal, do that. Okay, now we're ready to bake. Now you don't want to be lifting up the mat and curling it up like this. You want to keep everything as flat as possible at all times. So I'm going to take my cookie sheet and I'm going to slide it underneath the mat. You want to always keep it as flat as possible. Now when you have edges like this on your cookie sheet, you want to make sure that your mat doesn't go up and over the edges. You want to make sure that everything remains flat. Now I'm going to put this in the oven for about 15 minutes at 325 degrees. You want your gingerbread to look like golden brown. You don't want it to be a blonde color unless you've colored it that way. But I found that the bigger the piece, sometimes it has to go 20 minutes or so. Okay, now we have them out of the oven. I had them in there for about 15 minutes. The first thing you want to do is get them off the cookie sheet and onto my countertop or something that's flat. Anything that's flat. And keep them there for about 10 minutes until they've completely cooled. Okay, these have been cooling for about 10-15 minutes. They're cool to the touch. They're not flexible anymore. They're firm. Now I'm going to transfer them over to a more permanent storage place where they'll sit until I can start decorating them. I use a baker's rack, but if you don't have a baker's rack, you can use a shelf or a table, something that's going to keep the pieces completely flat. If your piece is curled or warped in any way, flip it over and then put it back in the oven for like 5 to 10 minutes. Then put it back on the counter again. But before I go, I wanted to show you the up close and personal of the gingerbread. It's not too pretty. It's like a little wallflower. But it doesn't need to be pretty for our purposes. But if you need a construction grade gingerbread that's nice and smooth, I would suggest using the corn syrup recipe that we're going to be using next week. It comes out a lot more smooth. But for our purposes, we don't need that because we're going to be covering these babies with bricks. And that is what we're going to be doing next week on Hooked on Gingerbread. So until then,